Triple H, my boss. I've met Vince. I've met Shawn Michaels. He's the boss in NXT, which is the developmental territory, obviously. Um, but yeah, the main one was Austin because I've been watching him since I was a kid, and he was like my favorite wrestler.
Okay, so we've got a really special guest today on the Launch Lab podcast. Now, this gentleman's had quite a journey. I've known him, maybe it's 15 years before he reached superstardom. And I remember watching him train hard and train properly in my old gym. So myself and Luke, who's on the podcast, Luke Menzies, was a member when he was a professional athlete at one of my former gyms. And I saw his meteoric rise, and we're going to dive into that and see what he's up to now. So welcome, Luke.
Hey Miles, how are we doing? It's nice to finally see a familiar face, and one that I always enjoyed seeing when I used to come to train. And it was I can't believe it's been like 15 years since we like first met. Probably going on
Like
20.
that,
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely.
And whereabouts are you now, Luke? In the States? Where are you? Where are you at?
So I'm based. I always say Orlando, but I'm based kind of just south of Orlando in a city called St. Cloud. And it's just nice. It's quiet, off the beaten track. So just how I like it.
Okay, so let's get straight to it then. So from a Yorkshire lad to the WWE in America. I mean, when you talk about a journey, break that down for us. Give us a bit of insight.
Well, I'd always been a wrestling fan, believe it or not. Like kind of one of my guilty pleasures, or not a guilty pleasure, but something I kept for myself. So from the age of like, I would say 6, I used to watch the old reruns of World of Sport with my nan. Big Daddy, Giant Haystacks, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then coinciding with that, my dad played rugby. And it got to a certain point. I got to about 7, 8 years old. But I was like, right, it's time to put your boots on, kid. And so I ended up playing for Batley Boys and going through all the junior stuff and still watching wrestling, side by side. And we had mates and stuff. And obviously, Keegan, Big Keegan. I'm still best mates with him. We used to watch wrestling together and stuff. And then I ended up getting picked up by Salford Red Devils when I played for Driggleton. Went through their academy. I moved. Bradford came in. Bradford swiped me from underneath Salford's nose. Went to Bradford. Like very limited spots in the first team there, obviously because they had a load of superstars and I was just a young whippersnapper. So I moved to Batley Bulldogs and then I'd club after club after club, managed to get into Super League with Hull KR, dropped back down into the first division, and then finished at Salford. And I got released from Salford while I was on honeymoon. So I got a phone call saying, "Oh yeah, we're not going to renew your contract." So I'm charming. So I'm obviously still kind of a wrestling fan and stuff, and I'm going through Twitter and I see a tweet from William Regal, who's obviously people who know William Regal is famous British wrestler, and he was kind of championing the coaching services of the man that coached him back in the day, a guy called Marty Jones, who used to wrestle in the World of Sport. He was like a 7-time mid-heavyweight champion, and he's based in Oldham. He's from Oldham, from Shaw. So I emailed him, laid in bed in Cancun, emailed me straight back. 2 days later, I flew home, went to my first wrestling practice, and then 6 months later, WWE Tryout. But within that time, obviously bills need paying. So I got approached by Brian Noble to sign for Toronto Wolfpack. So I did a preseason with Toronto Wolfpack while we're going through the tryouts with the WWE, and then WWE said, how easy is it to get out of a rugby contract? And I said, I'll show you. And so I spoke to them, and then I just moved over to the States. But we had a bit of a hiccup because my initial visa got declined, which put my move on hold for 12 months. So I had to go out and wrestle on the independent scene around Europe to prove to the US government that I was a wrestler. So once we got all that proved, me, my wife, and my 8-month-old daughter at the time, we made the jump over to the States.
So you make that sound really simple. You make that just sound like an effortless transition. So pro rugby player, Straight away, oh, no sweat, no problem. Oh, I'll just go in the WWE. I'll go to the States, no problem, move my family. But I mean, talk me through the stresses, the mindset, the resilience in that sort of in that space.
Well, so you firstly have the disappointment of getting released from your contract when I was with Salford, right? They're not going to renew you. So it's like, okay, the only thing I've known how to do, Miles, is I've always used my body to earn a living. I don't have any really degrees as such. I don't have a trade. My trade has always been physical stuff, sport, athletics. So I'm like, okay, what can I do here? And I'd always, previously, when I was like 20 and 24, I'd inquired at wrestling schools to get into the business. And you kind of got shot down, told the wrong people, rugby lads, why do you want to do that shit? You know what I mean? Um, and I was like, just a leap of faith. I'm going to try it, you know? And then obviously there's my wife. She thinks I'm going through a midlife crisis, you know, or an early midlife crisis, going from a pro athlete playing Super League to going to this warehouse in the middle of Oldham, wrestling, wrestling guys, you know.
So
Uh,
did you how did you break that? So did you say I'm swapping tight rugby shorts for spandex? Is that what you said?
pretty much because I'd kept like how much I like wrestling like pretty secret from my wife. She never knew. I never watch it with her. I never catch her, let her catch me watching it. So it
Right.
was kind of like a bit of a surprise. So I just said, "Look, I'm going to give this a go." And she thought it was a phase. She went, "Oh," even my dad said, "Oh, it's a phase. He'll just want to try it." And you know, it
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
it,
Okay.
it ended up just, the coach thought I had something. I took to it like a duck to water. And then the WWE was coming over to do tryouts in Glasgow at the SEC Arena, I think it is in Glasgow. So we had tryouts there, and you had to go upstairs and cut a promo in a room. So you had a minute. And at this point, I'd not wrestled like a professional show. I was just training. So there's like William Regal there. There's a few other guys. You've got to cut a 1 minute promo. I did it. I just spoke about my time in rugby, what happened, all this, and they ended up loving it. I had one of the coaches say to me, "If you do that again tomorrow, I think you've got yourself a job." Um,
Right.
so the mindset was just like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel I need to do this. It was something in me that said I need to do this. As far as like traveling to Oldham, doing the wrestling training, and taking the flack from my mates and stuff about why we're doing it, and even being misunderstood. There was something in me that went, something drawing me to it, and a need to do it. And it's hard to describe. It just felt like something that I was destined to do. You know.
So
Um,
obviously, physically, the strength, the mobility, the athleticism, everything else from rugby and training carries over to wrestling. Obviously, you need the skills and the technical skills, but when you see the showmanship and like you said, the promo reels, I remember Hulk Hogan and, Ultimate Warrior in sort of like the olden days doing the famous like sketches. I don't know what it's called, but is there like a training school for that to learn that?
Yeah, so there's a trade. It's called the Performance Center, and it's based in Orlando. That's why all the new recruits they come and live in Orlando, so they can report to the Performance Center, and it's there. It's a job. You're in there 5, 6 days a week. There's 5, 6, 7 rings. There's the full-on strength and conditioning area. We have strength coaches. There's special rooms where you have promo class where you can record yourself cutting a promo, watch yourself back, get critiqued. There's even like a ready-made TV studio in there where they host wrestling shows weekly on like big networks in the US. So everything that you need as a budding professional wrestler to improve is there like under one roof. If you can imagine like if the NFL had a performance center, and everything you needed to know about being an NFL player would be under that roof. That's WWE's version.
I get you. So, right, next question I've got for you is so you go over there, you show your physical prowess, you start doing all these, I don't want to use acting skills for the camera and everything else. When do you get your wrestling name? How does that come about?
Well, so first off, what they do is I remember when I first got there, I wasn't expected to wrestle for the first couple of months, and I got there, and I think the first 2 weeks I made my TV debut was Luke Menzies, just kind of as like an enhancement talent for more experienced wrestlers on
Yeah.
TV. So I had a couple of outings as like Luke Menzies and working the untelevised shows, and then when you're getting ready for TV, like to be focused upon and become a regular character, they come to you and they say, "Look, can you give us 20 names?" So I'm like, okay. So within your promos and stuff, you're kind of working on a character what might fit well. So I was going down the lines of like a kind of Yorkshire, Peaky Blinders, Bill Sykes, kind of like Vinnie Jones, Snatch S, Guy Ritchie, kind of all those amalgamated into one, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, I need a name that kind of, so I wanted a British name. So I either wanted Archie, Charlie, or Tommy, because they're obviously synonymous with kind of British sounding names. Then I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I need a surname that I always like being a bad guy, so I need something with like negative connotations. So I went Malice. So I was like, it was either going to be Archie, Charlie, or Tommy Malice. And that was the one that I wanted, but they didn't like it. So then I wrote down 20 names that meant nothing to me. And then they picked Ridge, and then from one name, then Holland off another, and put those two together and said, look, um, the boss man likes this. And I turned it down at first. I said, I think it's shit. Don't like it. I mean, I've never met a Yorkshire guy fella called Ridge, you know?
No, it sounds very, very states-esque, an American name, doesn't it, Ridge?
Massively. And so I turned it down, and then they came back to me a couple of weeks later and said, listen, like, he really likes this. So I'm like, well, he's paying the checks, he's writing the show, so I guess we'll give it a go. And that's how Ridge Holland was born, really.
So was there any like other alter egos? Like, you weren't going to be like Mr. Hot Guy or, coming in with the hot pants on. There were no other characters, no?
No, not really. I'd always gone in with the intention of being a bad guy, and
It's a heel, isn't it?
yeah, heel's a bad guy, yeah, so a
Yeah.
villain. And I always liked that kind of the kind of Guy Ritchie-esque type thing, and there'd never been a lad from like Yorkshire in there really that would talk and put that character across, and it ended up being really hard to do that because they just don't understand the vernacular, you know. So it was hard to put that across. So I had to kind of the thing with your promos and things when you get on TV, they're written for you.
Right.
So
Okay.
when you've got an American lad that's never been in a fight before, never been a pro athlete, never been to England, doesn't understand how we talk from Yorkshire, and he's telling you, say, hey, I'm going to kick your ass. How many lads in Yorkshire, Miles, did you say if you got into a bit of a situation would say that to you? They wouldn't, would they? You know what I
No,
mean?
on a night out down Batley in the olden days, you'd not hear that, would you? No, that's not what
No,
you'd hear.
no, no. You'd hear something a little bit more selective, let's say. But
Yeah. I think we've both
but-
experienced that.
yeah.
So you start your wrestling.
Mm.
At this point, what are you finding the most difficult? What's the most difficult part of learning this new craft?
So I'd say I always so the thing that I found easy was like the moves and stuff and the athletic things. Obviously, coming from an athletic background, the hardest thing was probably the psychology of putting a wrestling match together. So if you think about it, our job is really to suspend the audience's disbelief and garner emotional reactions from them, and we garner those emotional reactions via what we do in the ring. So there's a kind of like there's a psychological component to what we do. Everything that you do in the ring needs to mean something, and there needs to be a reason for it. And the modern style of wrestling that's kind of gone by the wayside. But how I was taught, everything that you do needs to have a meaning. Like for instance, me being a heel, a bad guy, it'd always be doing something underhanded. It'd always been attacking the guy from behind. You know, even if he was down on the floor, I'd circle behind him and attack a guy from behind and things like that. Things that looked underhanded and people would resonate and think, oh, that was a bit shitty. And doing things like that, and then you'd garner that negative emotion from the fans, and they'd want to see the babyface, the good guy, come back and smash me to pieces. And
Yeah.
then that's when they get the sympathy from him selling. So that's the psychology part. And just knowing like not just what, but how, not just what to do, but how, where, and when. And That's the toughest bit.
So I've got to ask this. So I think most grown-ups appreciate that wrestling it's theater,
Oh,
there's a planned ending and a planned victor and all the rest of it. So and I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's quite detailed, the actual plan of the match by both parties before. So do you two get together in the room beforehand and you map out the match? Is that how it works?
pretty much. I mean, like there's an art to it of like, say like the booker or the office, or the boss man saying, "Listen, we want this as a finish. This is the finish of the match," and then the two guys would just be able to go out there and call it in the ring. There's certain ways that you can communicate in the ring, whether it be a touch or talking and how to communicate in the ring, and we can still do that. But now with the advent of everything being so like on such a big scale with cameras and tight shots and everything like that, and everything's mic'd up, and they don't want to miss these shots. It's very heavily produced. So to your point, yeah, we'd get instruction of what the boss man wanted, and then we'd have a producer with us or an agent. We'd go together, we'd throw ideas around and see what would fit where and stuff, and see how we would tell this story the best way possible and have an entertaining match within the time constraints. Like it might be a 2 segment match. You might have a segment, a 4 minute segment up front, a 3.5 minute break, and then a 6 minute segment on the back end. So you have to plan break spots. You have to plan spots to come when you come back on air, and all that. Meantime, when you're dark, when you're in commercial break, you're still working for the live audience. So it's like spinning plates. The referee's
Oh,
talking to you. The referee's talking to you. He's communicating times. You're communicating to your opponent. So like, there's a lot of things going on. It really is a skill, and the guys that are fantastic at it are truly like masters of the craft.
and so you're in WWE, so you know, so who did you dance around the ring with then? Give me some names. What were the biggest names you danced around the ring with?
Oh man, I mean, I wrestled recent, like probably like what was it, 2022, like Roman Reigns. We were in like a War Games match with Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus. Um, Not on TV, but we was in the ring with John Cena, at like an after show thing for the live audience. Yeah, there's been a few. I've bumped into, not wrestled and stuff, but obviously bumped into the Undertaker and Steve Austin at WrestleMania and stuff. Because Austin was my guy. He was the man that made me want to be a wrestler.
So
Uh,
who were the ones that made you actually like have a bit of like be starstruck?
so the only one was Austin. Like I'd met obviously Triple H, my boss. I've met Vince. I've met Shawn Michaels. He's the boss in NXT, which is the developmental territory, obviously. Um, but yeah, the main one was Austin because I've been watching him since I was a kid, and he was like my favorite wrestler. So um, meeting him was like oh shit, it's stone cold because he's not around a great deal. He's on a ranch in Nevada somewhere, keeping himself out of the way. So when he pops up, it's kind of like, oh shit.
Wow. So from a physical perspective, then, as a pro wrestler at the highest level, what is your sort of training in terms of how much is like S&C gym, strength training, how much is wrestling skills, how many hours a week? Give me a bit of a breakdown.
So initially, when you start, you're wrestling. So when I first started, it would be like Monday. So you'd be in the ring, wait, 3 hours, 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours in a class. So it'd be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You'd be in 2 or 3 hours in the morning in your class. Then there'd be extra ring, and you'd have to go. That'd be compulsory. You'd have to go to extra ring, like later on, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And what you do is you would have your ring time in the morning for 2 hours. Then you go straight into the gym. Then you'd have a little bit of downtime, grab some food, and then you would go back for extra ring. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we had these things called coconut shows, which were live events around Florida where guys could get in front of a live crowd and hone their craft. So you would kind of train in the morning on a Thursday and a Friday, and then you would get in your car, put your suit on or put your smart clothes on and have your wrestling gear, and then travel 2 hours to Jacksonville and go put the ring up. Put the chairs out and in these armories, and then wrestle on the show, and then travel back, and then do the same again. Friday and Saturday. So I would say, yeah, a good, what, 10 hours, 10, 12 hours of wrestling, and then probably 4 days, 4 times a week you're lifting. I would always like to do my own lifting though. Like I always have my own coaches. You know what I mean? I'm very particular about how I train and what I do. Um, a lot of the guys will follow like train like bodybuilders, but as we all know, it's very 2D. You know, there's not a lot of, athletic components to that style of training, and then you see guys that are tearing pecs, tearing biceps, and things of that nature. So I always like to keep things relatively athletic.
What is there? And this is something I've heard on the mentioned before from wrestling. Is there any sort of pressure on you to maintain your a certain look, a certain body fat percentage, depending on your character? Is that something that's brought up regular or
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say it's like if you're in shape, you're in shape, and they don't really, bother with you. But I think it comes down to like a personal standard, like it. Because if you think of wrestling, it's a variety show, right? We've got big, tall, skinny, fat, muscular, men, women. It's a variety show, so there's a place for everyone. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to be safe in the ring, which means you need to have your wind. You need to be relatively strong in the ring, and you need to be durable. So, regardless of whether you're carrying an extra few percent body fat, you need to make sure that you're doing your cardio and you're getting your conditioning in. So, as long as your performance isn't marred by your physical, by your physical condition, you're okay.
wow?
But yeah,
Uh,
back in the day, obviously everyone was, you know, 300 pounds, absolutely gassed to the gills. That was just how it was, right? But now things have changed slightly.
Yeah, because the wrestling look, I know there's outliers, but you know, if you go back 20, 25 years, the majority of them could have stood on a bodybuilding stage, most of them, couldn't they?
Yeah, yeah, they could have done. And 25 years ago, even like 25, 30 years ago, a lot of them, the schedule there, they were wrestling, do it on the road 250 or 300 days a year, and then not to mention, what did they have to do to maintain those physiques while on 2 hours sleep a night, driving 4 hours every night. Yeah, it's just taking the punishment, obviously working injured, and that's why we had, unfortunately, a lot of guys from like the 80s and stuff pass away relatively early. I know we've heard about the British Bulldog and people like that
Yeah.
pass away relatively early due to, you know, painkillers and a cocktail of things just to keep going. But it's in a better spot now. They have drug testing, the medical supervision is top notch. The schedule's a hell of a lot lighter. So we get treated, or they are, because I'm not with the WWE anymore, but they get treated a lot more like athletes, like a priority now.
You mentioned like the 250 days on the road. What was kind of like a typical schedule for you in terms of travel?
So it would differ with obviously NXT. It would be what I said, obviously training like 5 days a week and then three shows. So
Yeah.
you'd do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that'd be just within Florida. But it'd be like, it could be a 200 mile, trip, each way. Um, but then when I got up to the main roster on SmackDown, we'd fly out to whatever city it was, on a Thursday evening for SmackDown on Friday. We'd do SmackDown. We'd get in a car. Me and Pete, my tag partner, we'd get in a car. We'd drive however many hours or miles it would be to the next town, to the hotel. Get in at 3, 4 in the morning. Sleep. Get up. Go to the gym. Head to the show. Do the show. Rinse and repeat. Drive to the next town, and then depending on whether they needed us for Raw Monday night, we catch a flight to Raw or drive to Raw, or we fly home Monday morning, and then we'd have 2 days at home, 3 days at home, and then rinse and repeat that. So it's still a grind. It was still a grind. Now the schedule's even lighter. They don't really have house shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just do TVs now. Um, but it was still a grind back then, yeah.
Wow. And so from starting in the WWE to, I know you've just mentioned, obviously, you're not, and obviously, because I follow you on socials, I know you've had one hell of a journey and some real bad luck.
Mm.
Um, so as you sort of, do you want to talk about your injuries now and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, so I was probably in the company probably about a year, 18 months, and I was set for like having a really big, they call it a push, where you're going to be a focal point, and they're going to kind of make you one of the guys. And I ended up, I was outside the ring, and a guy dove on me, and as I went to catch him, I took a step back, and I kind of caught him relatively high, so I had to step back, which fractured and dislocated my left ankle, and I had him here, so I was still trying to hold him. So as well as fracturing and doing all that damage to my left ankle, all that weight went through my right leg, which caused my knee to come in, which caused the patella to dislocate, which caused the patella tendon to rupture. So all in one fell swoop, I blew both my legs out. So that was like 10 months, 10 months on the sideline. Um, I managed to rehab that and come back. They thought that we're done. Like I remember when I came back from injury, the medical staff said we thought you were done. Like we didn't think you'd come back from it.
Yeah, because they're quite. I mean, for anybody who's in the fitness and sporting industry, that they could be career ending, couldn't they?
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. But it's testament to like the physical therapy, members at the WWE that they know the stuff, and obviously you've got to put the work in. And I worked my ass off, but without their guidance, I don't think I would have been back in the shape that I ended up being in. But I came back, ended up getting called up to SmackDown, and then I think my first pay per view was on New Year's Day. I ended up uh, someone landed on my face and broke my nose. Now, usually, with a broken nose, I'd have carried on, but they had a strict no blood policy, and my nose was pissing blood. I couldn't get it to stop, so I had to leave the match, a tag team match. Um, my nose was like over here on my face, so they tried straightening it, couldn't do it. I had to fly to Nashville for the nose job. Um, that fixed my nose, so that put me back about 6 weeks. Uh, then
So basically, the modelling career's back on now. Yeah, now you've got your
it's
nose
back on.
done.
Like,
Yeah,
well, my nose is better than it's ever been now, mate. So I can charge a bit of a premium.
yeah,
Um, but and then we had an issue where I unfortunately was involved in an accident where a gentleman broke his neck. Um, I gave him an overhead belly to belly suplex, and it just went awry, and he landed on his head, broke his neck. He's okay now. He can't wrestle again, but he's not doesn't have any nerve damage. He kind of fractured his C1 vertebra. So he can't wrestle anymore. But I copped a lot of flack after that, and that kind of derailed my career because when something big like that happens, and he was a big star, um, it's a big thing when you're kind of involved in a sport where someone gets hurt, and I was new.
How did you feel? How did that sort of make you feel?
Terrible, mate. I had like confidence wise, like it took me probably 3 years to get over it. Confidence wise, I didn't want to touch anyone.
Yeah.
Didn't want to even get in the ring and touch anyone. Um, and then just from there, it was like always this black cloud. I had social media. I got like death threats to my house and stuff, and I still get it to this day. So that was a big thing. Um, and then due to that, there was like a black cloud hanging over me from like I could tell like the way that things were that people had lost a bit of confidence in me due to that. Um, so I asked if I could go back down from the main roster to back down to NXT for a bit of a what's the word, like a character repackage or a rebrand
Yeah.
with the view of coming back up in 6 months, kind of a bit with a bit more shine and just kind of reestablished. And that just didn't end up working out. They had other ideas, and then I ended up like winning some tag belts in NXT and challenging for the heavyweight title and stuff. But um, nothing really focused on me. It was always to kind of like get someone else over.
Yeah.
And then I ended up, I was due to, um, my contract was coming up, and I wrestled. They have a partnership with another wrestling company called TNA. So I'd gone down there to wrestle their world champion at that time, Mike Santana. And the day after, I wrestled a guy called Moose, and I caught him in a power bomb. So I popped him up, and he's so athletic. He jumped so high, I like nearly lost him. So I caught him, stepped back again, and then the left foot I had a Liz Frank injury, where it's like a midfoot dislocation. So the ligaments in the mitten that hold your foot together, they snapped, and it felt like, imagine someone's getting a dishcloth and wringing it out in your boot. That's what it felt like. So I had to have surgery. And then during the time that I was recovering from that, my neck was giving me issues. So I went to see a specialist. They said, you've got two collapsed discs in your neck. You need a fusion. Well, there's no way I'm having a fusion. I didn't want a fusion. I've seen what it does to people. So I found a doctor in Manhattan, Dr. Karishi out of HSS in Manhattan. And he'd worked on UFC fighters and hockey players, and they've all gone back to, like, full contact sports. And we did a double, a two-level artificial disc replacement. So now I've just got two titanium discs in my neck, and I'm sweet. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at this moment in time. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to touch on your training philosophy. So, young lad in Batley,
Yeah.
you go through rugby, you build up the physique, you build up the strength. That serves you well, professional athlete, gets you the look and the athleticism and everything for the WWE. At the age you're at now, obviously going through that journey, how has your training changed? What's your sort of training philosophy now?
So now, now I take, obviously I still have a coach. I'm coached by a gentleman called Luke Lehman, who used to be an educator for Charles Poliquin or the Poliquin group back in the day. He's the man.
Wow, that takes me back. I used to go to every Charles Poliquin seminar I could, wherever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the man, and he's like a wealth of knowledge. He's one of the smartest guys that I know. Anyway, he writes at the minute. Right now, I'm just wanting to get back feeling a bit athletic after being on the shelf for 7 months. So we're doing a kind of like a mixture of bodybuilding, and then on some days I'm doing some Olympic weightlifting. Uh, so I'm just relearning those movement patterns,
Yeah.
and then we're going to start throwing some conditioning in there, some sprints and things like that. So it's all a matter of just, you know, getting getting back, feeling good. And the big thing for me now, because I'll be 38 this month, I've had a lot of injuries, so it's longevity. And what we found now with obviously the research is when people start breaking down, when they lose that power output, when they stop training power, and that neural efficiency.
Yeah.
So this is why that I thought, okay, I want to start doing this, Olympic weightlifting, and start, learning those skills. Because not only for the, for obviously for the power output, but obviously for the mental, it's learning a new skill,
Yeah.
so that keeps us going. But as far as like my philosophy now is just prioritizing sleep, prioritizing recovery, and just making sure that I'm not drilling myself into the ground. Because I've done that before and realized that I wasn't making progress when I was younger. I wanted to get bigger, I wanted to get stronger, and I would just throw the kitchen sink at everything. And yeah, you just can't recover from it. So now it's okay. One, wake up. How did I sleep? How do I feel? Can I push today? How's the body feeling? Am I getting my mobility working? Do I just need to go for a walk today? So it's very much a suck it and see type thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and if I can do what's programmed, great. If I can't, I'll let him know, and we'll just kind of pivot.
So, what would you say that training mistakes? So, along your journey, looking back now, if you were to speak to a younger you,
Mhm.
what would you be saying to that younger you now about training?
Oh, I'd say stop looking at people that you want to look like and training how they train, because they're a lot further on in their lifting career. What's working for they're at this moment in time, guys that are big and have made plenty of gains, whether it be strength or size, they're refining, and they're looking for that extra 1% to bring them up to whatever level they want to get to. As a young man, early in his training career, just focus on the basics. I would say 2 or 3 full body lifting sessions per week. Focus on, vertical pull, horizontal pull, vertical push, horizontal push. You've got a hip hinge, squat pattern, and throw some unilateral work in there, and Bob's your uncle. Um, just I think, and I think bodybuilding has taken up such a big space in the fitness genre that people think that's how they should train anyway. They should train like a bodybuilder. And if you want to feel good, and look good. You can't always train like that. You know, bodybuilders are training for a reason, and that's to get on stage one day, 2 days out of the year. You know, so I think people need to realize, one, they need to have realistic expectations, and they need to pick a modality of physical activity that they feel that they can see themselves doing 10 years down the line,
Yeah.
that they enjoy. Because there's no point going to the gym. We've all been there. We've all said, I hate this, but I'm going to do it because I think it's going to, give me what I'm searching for. But if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to put forth the effort.
What would you say? So if you were giving out based on your breadth of knowledge and obviously at the highest levels, if you are programming now for somebody who wants to age well, live well, look decent, move well, what kind of things would be in a training plan? What would you be writing out for that person?
Oh, definitely. I think definitely now zone 2 cardio. Like even without lifting, just like 120 minutes of zone 2 cardio per week within, minute, just for increasing metabolic flexibility, increasing you know the recovery capabilities and your aerobic capacity. If your aerobic capacity is higher, you're able to recover more efficiently in between your sets and from your workouts. And not only that, you can you can utilize the nutrients better.
Yeah.
You become more sensitive. It has carryover to blood pressure and endothelial function and things like that. So zone 2 cardio is massively underrated. It's not just a calorie funnel. Everyone uses cardio as a calorie funnel. It's not a calorie funnel. You know, it's you're building the engine. If you want to perform well. And then from
Strength wise, give us
strength
your prescription.
Oh man, strength wise, I think I'd switch to, obviously, like I said before, you want the basics in there, your horizontal, vertical pushes and pulls, and you want some knee dominant and you want some hip hinge. But I think things like front foot elevated split squats and definitely a lot of posterior chain work is where people miss out. So back extensions, reverse hypers, things of that nature. I'd definitely program them. Um, and I think the single leg and single arm stuff is great just for ironing out discrepancies. Obviously, that's where, like, if I have clients, for instance, and I want them to record their list for me, and let's say it's a front foot elevator split squat. I'll say, can you record it for me, but on your last set when you're under fatigue, because that's when those holes kind of show themselves, right?
Yeah.
And then we can program it. We can say, okay, we need to do this, that. You might just stay in the hole a bit longer, slow down. Okay, have a bit of a longer step. Don't have your feet like a tightrope. Think train tracks and tightrope, all that kind of stuff. But I definitely think unilateral work and definitely some form of like core work, whether it be anti-rotation work, pull-off presses, things of that, even like anti-rotation dead bugs, just things that are going to make you feel good and that have definite carryover to life. I always kind of look at it as like, when I'm 60, I still want to be able to run around with my grandkids. So if we're stronger on, like single limbs, I think that people are missing out on a lot if they're not including single limb training, unilateral training, in the programs.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I mean, I can echo a lot of what you just said. It's what I say to most people. It doesn't have to be complex, doesn't have to be fancy. It's a lot of the basics.
Yeah, it's always a lot of the basics and making sure that that you are progressively overloading, but now everyone thinks that progressive overloading is putting more weight on the bar. Yeah, from a basic standpoint, yeah, but it could be, increasing tempo. It could be standardizing your technique. That's still progressively overloading. If you're improving your technique week on week, even with the same load, you're still progressively overloading. And then when you get your technique perfect and standardized, then we can look at loading and
Yeah.
kind of adding more weight to the bar there or more weight to the exercise. And obviously recoverability, making sure that how well can you recover from what you're doing, the stimulus to fatigue ratio. So um I wouldn't say just smashing yourself is the main thing, even if it's just 2 working sets. um And it's also for courses, you know, what's the guy's goal? What's the individual's goal? Is it fat loss? Is it muscle gain? Do they just want to feel good? So your programming is gonna change pretty much on the goal of the of the participant.
So for your clients, what are the big things you measure, you track, and you hold them accountable for their own good and their own results?
So the first thing that I'll always do is it's always not giving them too much to like if I went to them, okay, these are your macros. I want you to hit these calories, this protein, this carbs, this fat, and they've never tracked before. How long do you think that's going to last? You know, so I'll always give them a couple of little goals. So I always make sure that say, listen, um, let's focus on protein and let's focus on your overall calories. Just two things to work on then. And then once we get that nailed for like a solid 2 weeks, we can add something to that. Something I would always do. Um, I'll always ask if they can get on the scale in the morning, just so we can get an average scale weight throughout the week, you know, if in the morning fasted after they've been to the bathroom. Um, but if they can't, just once a week will do. At least you have a metric. It's all about data, especially being an online coach. I can't be in there with them. So the more data that they can give me, the better when we get, you know, that down the road. As far as training, um, we always kind of go through kind of like a either a structural balance or a GPP phase with our clients, and that's obviously them learning how we're gonna, you know, program down the line, increasing skill, tissue tolerance, things of that nature, and it's me learning about them. So I'll always ask them to record the lifts, like last working set, as we go on. And then I think the main thing is being a coach for me is communication. So like on WhatsApp, a lot these daily touch points. How you doing? How you feeling? You know, did you sleep well? Not just what you're doing in the gym, but what you're doing out of the gym. So I'm very. I don't want to say like controlling. That's not the right word, but I like to know what they're doing. I like to know if they're traveling. I like to know how they're sleeping, if they're stressed. You know, so there's a lot of metrics that we can use, and even like wearables. We use a chronometer uh, to for our nutrition tracking, and obviously there's you can integrate wearables into that, which gives us an idea of like the HRV, the resting heart rate. So therefore, in a training phase, we can tell if they're, you know, if they're getting pretty stressed out, or to the point where they need to deload if that HRV is dropping and that resting heart rate is getting elevated, things like
Yeah.
that. So they're the kind of things that I kind of look for down the line.
Perfect. So what currently in the fitness industry, what if you had a bin and you could grab things from the fitness industry that would never return, what would you be sort of putting in that bin right now?
Oh man, see, it's funny because I'm a big believer that everything works. Think everything can work in context, right? Like there's a place for everything. It's just that people get so focused on one thing. I think that is the only thing. That is the only way that you have to maneuver in you know in whatever goal you want to achieve.
Yeah.
Um, so I hate I probably man fitness influencers. They can go straight in the fucking bin.
Do you mean the people who get believed who have absolutely zero knowledge of anything to do with training, fitness, but they might have a genetically good body, so therefore they must, oh,
Yeah,
I'm going to follow them because on Instagram they look good.
yeah, but yeah, you summed it up because what I've come to find is that like there's 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 fitness influencers and there's coaches,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't think a coach will ever call themselves a fitness influencer. Um, so I think like what you've just said, then guys that are always posting pics of their own body, guys that are, you know, don't really. It's very generic advice and sometimes wrong advice. Or they'll even copy other people's content and put it out there, and um, especially nowadays with all the 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 peptide kind of craze that's going on, right? Everyone's running peptides and stuff like that, and
But I think some of the peptide gurus were pushing crypto 2 years ago, weren't they?
Yeah, it's just another thing. Like, oh yeah, I want this peptide is the answer to everything. It cures everything, right? It's going to make you Superman, and it just happens. I sell it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Use my follow the link below, that kind of thing.
follow
Yeah.
the link below it for you use code bullshit for the 10% discount.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
100%. I think that we'll agree on that one. I mean, what do you think the fitness industry is doing well and actually has evolved with? What do you think we're doing right?
so I think there's a lot of good educators out there. I think that I I think that it's hard because the influencers get so much traction. But I just wish, like, there's things that go on, like something going on in Las Vegas or we just finished called the Real Coaches Summit. Um, and that's a place where you can go and you can pay for a ticket, and there's all the top educators and people that actually know things that you can learn from within the industry, and go there and you can help your clients. So I think the good thing about the fitness industry is that people are putting out that content. They do it because they want to help people. I think that's the best. That's one of the main things, is that the people that are putting out good content that that is educational, they're doing it not because they want to earn money, not because they want to be known as an expert, but because they genuinely want to help people. I think that's a subsection of the fitness industry that's doing things really well there. The other thing is obviously I want money, I want clicks, I want this, I want that, I want grandioso statements. Um, I want clickbait. That's the thing that should be shied away from, because that leads people down the garden path, and unfortunately serves no purpose.
So for a young trainer who's getting into the business and for somebody who's wanting to get into the fitness business, coaching business, there's a hell of a lot of fitness business grifters out there
Mhm.
who, all the talk about is your 10K a month, your 5K a month, your 30K, sell high ticket. And when I see those kind of words, straight away, my bullshit radar goes off. Usually by a rented Lamborghini or a rented Porsche outside a house they don't own.
Yeah.
I, you know, what advice would you say to people who it's easy to get sucked in by that? What would you say?
So I think, like, to your point there, everyone's saying scale up, right? That's the message, right? Scale up. You need to scale your business.
Yeah.
If you've not got a business, you can't scale it. So I would say almost say scale down. Start small.
Learn your
Um,
craft.
Learn your craft. Yeah, learn your craft, and and that takes time as well. You would rather make mistakes when you when not as much money is on the line, if you've got a massive fitness business, and making mistakes that you should have made in your first 2 years of being a coach, and making them 10 years down the line, and absolutely losing your ass. So get in the gym, get training people, make mistakes. Okay, not mistakes that are going to harm people, but make the same mistakes that we always have done and people are still making, but make them early, learn from them, and then read, do your research, pick up, like, I'll go back to Luke, like Muscle Nerds Education. They have it's kind of like a monthly subscription. It's called Cerebro. It's $97 a month, and they put out a new lecture every month, and they've got everything from programming to stress and metabolism to anything. It's huge, and you can whittle your way through there and learn topics that will really help your clients and yourself. Um, and just find mentors, find like-minded people that want to learn. And
Yeah,
never
people who've actually trod the path.
Yeah, and not more often than not, those people that are that have been there and done that, they still have that thirst for learning. They're always learning. So if you want to find someone like that, someone to look up to, almost like a mentor, whether it's in close conversation with, or someone from afar where you can admire the work and kind of emulate. Just find someone who's helped a lot of people.
Excellent. And so what does life look like now, Luke? What is it you're currently doing? And yeah, I know you're doing some coaching. Is that taking up the bulk of your time?
Um, Pretty much at the minute, yeah. The coaching is a big thing. Obviously, I'm a father of three. My wife just started working, so she's a property manager for a real estate company now. So she's busy. So I'm kind of like kind of like flexible dad mode. You know, I'm working when I can, been with the kids when I can, school runs, drop offs, this and that. Looking to get back into wrestling, so picking up bookings, because I think I've still got an itch to scratch there, still got
Yeah.
something to myself. And then it's just finding the time, like I mentioned, just to stay educated and study myself and learn more. So I, sometimes I get overwhelmed because I've got so much things that I think I want to do. I I I struggle to like, okay, how can I find time to do all this stuff?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, just take it day by day. But definitely right now, helping the clients that I've got, doing a good job, and then picking up some bookings and getting back on the wrestling scene, and obviously staying in shape and enjoying my lifting and my training.
And just for anyone watching this now or watching any of these clips, I can wholeheartedly recommend Luke because I do know he actually has walked the walk, he's talked the talk, and he actually knows how to train and how to train people. Because I've seen it over the years myself. Even when he was a younger gentleman, he knew how to train and he knew what good training looked like and what good form and technique looks like. So I have no doubt that your client's form, technique, and everything is on point.
Well, I hope so, and if not, I'll be cracking the whip and stuff. But we try, right? As an online coach, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get everything nailed without being in there with them in person. But that's the challenge, and I think that's the mark of a good coach.
Yeah. And so for anybody who wants to obviously follow yourself, anybody who wants to get in touch for coaching, wrestling bookings, where do they find out more about you, Luke?
So all my stuff's really through Instagram. So it's at Ridge WWE. I've not had a chance to change my handle yet, so it's at Ridge RIDGE WWE. And for coaching, I work for a company called Silverback by Ali Gilbert.
Oh, I know. I've been to some of her seminars. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm in close quarters with Ali. There's me, Jim Ferris, and a guy called Anthony Bluebello. We're the coaches for Silverback. So yeah, if you're interested in coaching, hit us up at Silverback, and we'll help you out.
perfect, perfect. Um, Anything else you'd like to add, Luke?
No, it's good to reconnect with you, Miles. It's obviously you were always kind of like a wealth of knowledge yourself when I was a young kid. Training at MP Fit, and I'd always train on my own. I think you probably noticed that I never really had training partners, and
Yeah.
you would always there, and you've had your share of injuries too as well. With your Achilles and things like that. I remember, and
Yeah. I've done the shoulders, the hips, the Achilles. I think me and you were when you're about my age, you'll caught up to me with injuries.
yeah, I think what's that? I said the other day, I feel like I've donated my body to medical science, and I think you feel the same way.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got two titanium shoulders now, so it's just I keep just stacking up these injuries, keep stacking them up.
I have to start calling you the M62, mate, because you've got too much.
Luke,
No, it's awesome, mate, for connecting again, mate. And hopefully, when I'm back in the UK, I can come and we can get a coffee or whatever and what have you.
I look forward to it, mate, and we'll get a session in. So, like I said, everybody go and follow Luke. He's a gentleman and he's extremely knowledgeable. So, go follow Luke. And thanks for coming on, Luke, today.
Yeah, cheers, Miles. It's been a pleasure.